Okay, so I had the second half, so my section talked about domestic violence. So it gave a few examples. So domestic violence includes rape, sexual assault, robbery, assault committed by intimate partners, family members, or other relatives. It talked about how this type of violence happens way too often. How the average annual number of domestic violence is over 1 million, with intimate partners taking about 15% of that. There was a report that partner violence, emotional abuse, and forced sex is higher in the deaf population. Deaf or hard of hearing males and females were 1.5 times more likely to be victims of sexual assault, harassment, and physical abuse than their hearing peers. In 2018, there was 1,547 calls to the National Deaf Hotline Center from deaf survivors of sexual assault. Some examples of aggression towards a deaf person may be signing right in front of their face, slamming doors, banging chairs. There were many different examples. Then there's emotional abuse, which can simply just be making some fun of a victim's ASL signing skills, or another example was saying they're a horrible mother, trying to take their child away. Many times, if the deaf person tries to report anything, the police believe the hearing story and not the deaf story. Okay, the next one I had talked about the criminal justice issue. So, one major criminal justice issue is handcuffing. Most officers don't know, or like many don't care, and handcuff behind the back. For a deaf person, that is very limiting because their hands are the way they communicate. Many times, they do not have an interpreter present at the time of their arrest or their questioning. Even with an interpreter, it can be confusing, and many deaf people may not understand what they are agreeing to. Many agree to a plea bargain without understanding what it is and what their charges are. In correctional facilities, there are many rules for having deaf prisoners, but personnel may not follow those rules. Cost might be a factor, or not understanding the communication needs. Deaf prisons struggle with information being sent over the loudspeakers, because they cannot hear that, and it can result in them being punished, because they might announce something over the loudspeaker, hey, do this, hey, do that, but the deaf person can't hear it, so they come to their cell and they're still there, and so as a result they get punished for it when it really wasn't their fault. Another issue is solitary confinement. They talked about how the deaf person is already isolated from the hearing community, so then they're double isolated, which can result in many suicides. Many different prisons have created centralized units for deaf people. That's where it's a specific unit for just deaf people in that space, and then they take care of them there. So some places include Texas, California, and New York.